We got a lot of news to get into today, boys. I didn't stream Friday, which means we got some shit to talk about. Also, some class changes and some visual changes going live in the game with Reset this week. So we got some stuff to dive into. Here we go, boys. This week in Midnight, we already know the Race to World first began. We had opening of, Midnight Season 1 basically officially in full force here with the end of the March of Quel'Danas opening up on all difficulties, including Raid Finder Wing 3. A bunch of other things happening. This is a Pandaria junk going on. Escalation now live. April's trading post went live. You want to be Radagast from Lord of the Rings? You get your chance to do that. And get yourself some planty-looking shit. That's basically all that was happening around the week. But the Race to World First continued over the weekend. And Team Liquid is in the lead right now. But they found, yes, some interesting stuff going on in the game. That's right, a secret phase, guys. A secret phase for Lura was found from Liquid, and it's an interesting one for sure. It was hilarious. They didn't see it coming, which essentially led to their reaction being complete and utter chaos when they thought they had defeated the boss, and all they got to see was a new mythic phase only. So right here, they thought the boss was going to be defeated. You see them all going nuts, basically busting nerdgasms everywhere. And then they had to lock back in because a new mythic phase was beginning as the ads reconfigured, and then shit just went absolutely ham. The entire floor goes purple, ads freaking flying out everywhere. They couldn't survive it, but they are the first of the Race to World Firsters that actually got to see this mythic phase. So this is an interesting one. We'll see where this ends up leading. But yeah, just absolute chaos everywhere. You can see just ads spilling out from the boss. Essentially, you have a race now to the last boss. This is turning out to be one of the hardest final bosses in Raid. Okay, we have one of the hardest final bosses now, where you got all the guilds lining up to be the final push for the Race to World First. Where this ends up leading, we don't know. This final phase is the only thing we've seen so far. Nobody successfully even lasted even a second and final phase yet. So we'll continue to keep an eye on Race to World First and where it ends up leading. But for now, Lura looks like she's one of the hardest bosses that the Race to World First has seen in quite a while. Blizzard has nerfed the Race to World First just a little bit with Lura. Recent changes, it's really the glaives. If you guys know the glaives portion of this fight, we have essentially blades going out, hard to dodge, hard to deal with, and it's really visually hard to see. We did it in our own fight. In normal, even, it was something difficult for people to deal with, and that was because you really can't see where they're going a lot of times. So Blizzard this is a theme here you're going to see throughout this these patch notes, where Blizzard's trying to make things seem more visually easy to understand. Okay, so these blades going out, tough to see, tough to dodge. Blizzard now has kind of made these slower, at least in Mythic, and they're making them visually easier to see when they're going to actually shoot out. So we'll see how these things plan out. But for now, that's not the only thing they're actually doing. They're actually trying to make a lot of things easier to see, and that includes visual changes. Okay, visual changes to a lot of fights in the game right now, guys. We have dungeon and raid changes that lead to more easy to see visual abilities, I guess you could say. Magister's Terrace, we have some changes, including reduced health to the bosses. But what you really want to get into here is addressing issues where players can't really tell what the hell's going on. So Pit of Sauron, there is now a marking of an elite creature. Its damage and health are unchanged, but now it has a mana bar that you can actually see in visual effects and size adjustments for improved visibility. We now live in the world of post add-ons, right? And I'm going to get into some of that add-on stuff because Blizzard actually attacked Liquid for making some add-ons. But overall, we're getting more visually, identifiable abilities. I said this when we were raiding last week, guys, that it was tough for me to see some of these abilities. You know, purple floor, purple abilities, not the best combination. Swirlies that are hard to identify when you got all the spells on the ground as well. So Blizzard understands this. Looks like they've taken that feedback and they're giving us more visually easy to see spells, I guess. Skyreach also improves visibility there with Mark of Death. We see for Vord Spire, Vorsarius or Vorsiris, increased visibility on the impact zones of Shadowclaw Slam, and Shadowclaw Slam visual now has more accurately reflected its area of effect. For Veilgore and Azarak, improved visual clarity and targeting for Dread Breath, and for Lightbinding Vanguard, improved visual clarity for Avenger's Shield and Divine Toll, and resolved an issue with Divine Toll could hit players multiple times. So I guess they're taking the feedback in that we really can't see half these damn spells half the time. So making them more visually intuitive, able to see it. You can't dodge it if you don't see it. They're working on that, so that's a good thing. One thing that I wanted to get into about add-ons is, yes, Blizzard is reacting. They're taking it seriously, guys. We saw Team Liquid making a little add-on, or I guess you could call it, it's not really an add-on. It was really a macro that was helping them identify which of the orbs that swirl around the boss, which ones to interrupt. Okay, because right now the way Mythic works is you basically got to assign a group of 5 players to interrupt each specific orb, and if they interrupt the wrong one, it's basically a raid wipe. They got to interrupt them in 5 sequentially. So the add-on that they made, or the macro they made, essentially allows them to assign teams to a specific orb. To target that orb, all they had to do was click the macro. That was it, basically. So the group of 5, when it's time for them to interrupt, they just click their macros and it automatically targets the one they're supposed to interrupt. Well, Blizzard didn't like that. They disabled the ability to do that, and they are continuing to work against add-ons in the Race to World First and in the game in general. So they're taking this shit seriously. This stuff's not going away. Blizzard's clearly reacting to anything that gets made in the game right now to make fights easier outside of the game, whether it's a macro or anything else. So they're deleting that shit. They basically disabled, upon reset the next morning, disabled the ability for Liquid to use that thing, and they're continuing to react to anything that anyone tries to make the raid easier. So they're not allowing any of this shit. Other than that, upcoming class tuning, guys. Yes, we have more class tuning, and Blizzard's giving the tanks some love. That's right, guys. They're giving the tanks some love. Yes, of course, we deserve the love. After all, we do the hardest lift in this game. I know healers are going to come out and say, well, we do the hardest thing in this game. The truth is, as a tank, you can lose a healer and finish a fight. You lose a tank, whether it's in Raid or in a Mythic Dungeon or something else, it's done. You're donezo, okay? We don't have any room for mistakes as tanks, so it's nice to get some love here. We got a big dick buff to a bunch of tanks here, including other classes as well, not just tanks. Rogues are getting some love and others as well. We'll get into these notes here. Auto attack damage increased by 25% for Blood DK's. Death Strike damage increased by 12%. Blood Fortification armor increased by 45%, and Bone Shield now increases armor by 180%, was 150. Love it. Great changes. Give us more damage. Yeah, more damage for DK. That's good. We need it. We need it. We're lagging behind the other tanks right now. Frost DK sees their Obliterate damage increased by 12%, and Frost Strike and Frostbane damage increased by 15%, so some nice buffs for Frost as well. Vengeance Demon Hunter, melee auto attack damage increased by 40%, Focus Cleave damage bonus, and Soul Cleave primary targets increased by 60%, was 50%. And Soul Carver damage increased by 50%. So nice buffs there for Vengeance Demon Hunter. For Druid, we see Balance and Guardian buffs here. For Balance, Starfall damage increased by 16%, and Ascended Eclipse Lunar Bolt damage increased by 10%. For Guardian, just like Blood, we're seeing some good buffs to their tanking. We see Scintillating Moon Knight now causes Moonfire to reduce damage dealt by 6 to 12%, was 5 to 10%. And then Rend and Tear now causes Thrash to reduce the target's damage done to you by 3% per stack, was 2%. So good buffs for them. Not as big as Blood DK, but good buffs nonetheless. We see Evoker here getting some changes. Flame Shaper, Consume Flame, now causes Disintegrate to detonate to 150% of Fire Breath damage, was 115%, so a good buff for them. And then we see Paladin here, just like the other tanking specs. Protection Paladin getting some nice changes here. Auto attack damage increased by 50%. Damn, that's bigger than Blood DK's auto damage increase. That's a big one. For Glory of the Vanguard, rank 2 and 3, increased judgment damage by 20 to 40%, was 10 to 20%. For Glory of the Vanguard, rank 4, increases Shield of the Righteous damage to your primary target by 100%, was only 50. Greater Judgment, we see causes the target to take 50% increased damage from your next Shield of Righteous, was 40%. Imbued Shield reduces damage taken by 12%, was 10. Redoubted increase armor by 60%, base missing health was 50%, and then Light of the Titan's healing increased by 200% when afflicted with harmful periodic effects. So, man, Protection Paladin probably getting some of the biggest changes of everybody. I was excited for Blood DK. Of course, the Paladins, I swear to God, they're a fucking mafia. It's like Blizzard has to give them love or they'll get angry and shut down the Discord. Holy Paladins also getting some love here. Word of the Glory healing increased by 20%, and Light of the Dawn healing increased by 20%. For Monk, Brewmaster, Vital Flame now causes you to heal for 40% of all fire and nature damage taken by spells, was 50%, so that's a nerf. Shadowbrand Protective Training now reduces all damage by 8%, was 10, also a nerf. And then Windwalker, we see Fists of Fury now deals 60% of its primary target's damage, was 54. So Brewmaster Monk right now sitting as the S tier of all tanks. Everybody knows that Brewmasters having their time in the light, their glory days, and it looks like they're a bit too strong. So Blizzard buffing the other tanks and then nerfing Brewmaster a little bit. So we'll see if they remain the S tier of tanks after these changes go live on the reset this week. For Rogues getting some love. I know Rogues feel untouched this entire expansion so far. You know, they go to the psychologist, they tell them, hey, can you point on the doll where Blizzard touched you? And the Rogues start crying. They're like, Blizzard not touching us at all. They're acting like we don't even exist. So here you go. You're finally going to get touched, guys. Caustic Spatter for Assassination Rogue causes 20% of nature damage to hit nearby enemies, was 18. Garrett and Rupture damage increased by 5%, and Fan of Knives and Crimson Tempest damage increased by 10%. Nice buff for their AoE there. So good for Assassination. Outlaw getting a bigger buff here. All damage increased by 4%. Blades Flurry causes your abilities to strike all nearby enemies for 28% of total damage, was 30. It's a bit of a nerf, actually. Then Fatebound, Fate Intertwined increases the percent of damage Blades Fury spreads by 5, was 6, so that's a nerf too. And then Nimble Flurry increases Blades Flurry damage by 25% in Flawless Form, and when Flawless Form is active, was 30%. So these are all nerfs, except for the all damage increase by 4%. So this is kind of like a rebalance, I guess. Yeah, fuck Blizzard, they don't love Rainbow. I don't know. Blizzard touching Rogues, maybe not in the way they wanted to be touched. I don't know what to say about that. This is kind of rebalancing, the increasing all damage, but then decreasing some specific abilities. We'll see how, I guess, Rogues pan out on the charts in the next week or two. For enhancement, final changes here for everybody. We see Light's Bolt damage increased by 8%, Chain of Lightning damage increased by 25%, Crash Lightning and Intact damage increased by 20%, Crash Lightning weapon enhanced effects damage increased by 10%, and then Storm Strike and Wind Strike damage increased by 15%. Damn! Enhancement Shaman's getting, I didn't even see this one coming. Enhancement Shaman getting a ton of buffs here. Big dick buffs for Enhancement Shaman. Nice for them. For PvP, we see a couple damage increases across the board here. Hunter, Bestiality Hunter, reduction by 5% for their damage. Windwalker Monk, damage reduced by 3%. Paladin, all healing reduced by 10%. Assas Rogue, multi-damage increased by 180%. Outlaw Rogue, all damage increased by 8%. These are all PvP, by the way. Shaman healing increased by 20%. Affliction Warlock, all damage done increased by 12%. And then Arms Warrior, all damage increased by 3%. So big changes coming with this reset. Mostly big changes to tanking from what we've seen. And then, my God, those Enhancement Shaman buffs, those are going to be really nice for them. In other news, we got some nice trading posts coming with 12.0.5, especially if you're a Tauren Paladin. That's right, so we see a couple mounts here. We've been talking about some of these mounts, the Eagle Boys and the Great Looking. I mean, these are unbelievably beautiful looking Gilnean horses. I can't wait to get some of these. Horsecock, that's right, good stuff always in the game. But a bunch of really cool Paladin-esque Tauren armor and shit coming. I mean, look at how good this looks. If you're a Tauren, you are going to eat well, especially if you're a Tauren Paladin. We got a bunch of other like Blood Elf stuff related here, but look at all these Tauren Paladin-inspired weapons as well. Look at this. I mean, basically you got wood and light infused with metal, really badass-looking weapons, good-looking swords, a bunch of good-looking armor. Yeah, if you're a Tauren Paladin, you're basically going to eat well. Look at this, brass knuckles too. Man, these are cool. So nice-looking stuff coming in this post. This month's post, trading post, is really flowery. This one looking much more, less flowery, I should say. And for today, that is all in terms of news.